Hello, I am Lisa Svratanovich, the Velocity Detective, and today we are talking about balancing your creativity with your cash flow. Texas Accountants and Lawyers for the Arts has gone into cahoots with the Texas Commission on the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, and of course the City of Austin Economic Development Department to bring this wonderful information to you to help you guys understand that you can actually do this thing that you're so passionate about and, well, put money in your back pocket. Because why else are we doing this, right? So let me tell you a little bit more about TALA. If you don't know, Texas Accountants and Lawyers for the Arts is a nonprofit organization that really brings pro bono legal and accounting advice to artists and musicians and nonprofit organizations that support the arts here in the great state of Texas. I want you to think about checking out their website, talaarts.org. And what we do is match lawyers with the kind of legal thing that you need to have help on. We also match, have one-on-one sessions with accountants like myself so that we can help you understand how to do a little bit better on your bookkeeping, how to set up your books in the first place. What about what's deductible in my tax returns? We can help answer those questions. Of course, we have a lot of these webinars and in-person seminars, as well as some courses that we're developing so that you can really take advantage of learning how to run this business that you have, this organization that you have, a little bit better. Make sure you check out talaarts.org. We also have a YouTube channel where this is going to be playing live right now. And if you are on YouTube with us live, please feel free to ask questions over in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we're going along. It is an interactive session as we think about that. And then, of course, you can go back and listen to it again in case you missed something along the way. Again, we're thinking about you as an artist and the fact that you are also a business person. We're going to walk through Melody's business with her. She's a singer-songwriter, and she plays a little bit of piano, but she's really, really frustrated right now because as a performer, she's got like big times when there's festivals in town where she makes a lot of money, and there's other times where when it's, I don't know, raining outside and the stars are aligned in Pisces instead of in Virgo, that she, like, it just drops off the face of the earth. And it's frustrating to her because while money coming into the business goes up and down, things like her rent and her groceries don't follow that. And so what she wants to do is understand how better to think about the cash flow that's coming into her business. Well, first of all, to pay for the business expenses, but mostly to help her pay for her own four walls that she's got to live in on the personal side. A lot of the time, we really find it challenging as creatives to deal with that predictable income because of, like, Melody, one of the things that she is really finds difficult for herself, when she gets that big inflow of money, she's like, I have worked so hard for this. I deserve to go spend it. I deserve this new instrument. I deserve to get a new pair of shoes. I deserve something. And then when the money dips, she finds herself without that cash that she needs to pay for rent or put down on a booth at this upcoming event that she didn't even know existed. So helping her move through this challenge is one of the things that we're going to talk about today. And of course, as a creative, maintaining the records necessary in order to even think about doing something on a consistent basis. I mean, here she is with her shoebox full of receipts. How many of y'all out there have this like giant box of stuff that has no rhyme or reason to it? At least it's in one place, so congratulations on that. But having this giant pile of information doesn't help Melanie really think about it, having educated decisions on thinking about the future. When we're thinking about this future, right here, I have a crystal ball behind me. It's the snow globe, okay? So it's not as clear as it could be. And what we want to do is we want to try and get that cleared up as much as we can so that when we are sort of looking into the future for those times that are a little bit more down when the income is here, one of the very first thing that we need to do is to track some information. But Lisa, you already told me that this shoebox full of things isn't adequate. And that's even hard for me to do. So we're going to talk about some easier ways to track some things that are a little bit more fun and keeps them a little bit more organized so that we can see these trends. So when you track things in a more organized way, then you can start to see some trends happen. And when we see these trends occur in the past, we can look into the future, into our snow globe, and now it starts to become more like a crystal ball, where it's a little more clean and we can see where things are going in the future. So in Melody's case, what she sees is like a sold out show. Well, when we have 2 sold out shows in a row, if we are tracking the information around that, we can see that both of them were sold out shows maybe in the summer or spring during certain events. Well, if we know that that is the case, then our crystal ball becomes a little more clear when we're looking further out into the future, say into next year. Maybe we can say, okay, well, if we did this well during this event, most likely we're going to do that well again in the future. So we want to track things so that we can see trends and then take that and see what that is going to look like in the future by doing this trajectory. One of the tools that we're going to be using a little bit further down is this very simple track and trend spreadsheet. If you guys want a free copy of it, grab that QR code and pop it open. You will need to download it, but there's an example sheet and then there is a blank one for you to use in your own business. So be sure to grab that. And also in the chat is a link to this, just in case your QR code thing isn't working right now or you don't have your camera with you. All right, so there's a couple of different ways that we can track the information flowing through our business. Now remember that your business is, if you're exchanging goods or services, in Melody's case, it is both goods and services because she sells merch at her gigs, and she has gigs. That's the service of her singing. So she's got these goods or services, and she's exchanging them for compensation, and her intention is to make a profit. And what we want to do is track both the income, that's the money coming in for her gigs and her merch, and the outgoing things, that's the expenses. Like when she has this merchandise, she actually had to buy the t-shirt and then have things put on it so that she could sell it at the event. So we want to be able to track those types of things. One of the easiest ways to do that is simply on paper. And you can make it a little bit fun, right? You can get a really cool journal, and then all of the income, make it your favorite color. My favorite color is blue. And so maybe I would make all of the money coming in, I would make that blue. And then money going out is not a bad thing. When you think about, again, having the merchandise, you can't have the sale of the merchandise without the purchase of the merchandise. So we need to have that. So don't put it in your color that you hate. Put it in a complementary color from your income. So maybe purple is a good offset to that blue. And so you can just keep track of it on paper if that makes sense to you. Now, as your business starts to get a little bit more intense, like with Melody, she's thinking, well, not only is she going to have gigs on a regular basis, but she also is going to have these events at, say, the Spring Festival. And she wants to keep that a little bit separate. Now, how does she start tracking all of that on paper? It can be a little overwhelming. That's when you might want to graduate to a spreadsheet. Again, if you've downloaded the very simple one, you can see that it's got some different categories for the different types of potential income you can have. Now, the example is for Melody, but let's say that you are a photographer. Well, you might start doing wedding photography, but what if you also were invited to maybe take photographs of a gala for a nonprofit organization? Wow, that's a whole different type of thing. You also might want to think about, well, if I'm a photographer and I want to make some additional income, maybe I'm going to have a couple of courses that I develop and put online so that I can do some workshops. Well, that might be another revenue source that you want to track. Please feel free to use the spreadsheet in any way that makes sense to you and your business. You don't have to use the categories that are there. It's just a guideline for how you can potentially look at keeping the information. QuickBooks Online, of course, is kind of the standard in the United States for a small business that has outgrown spreadsheets. And if you're a little bit more organized, you're a little bit more tech savvy, that might even be a way for you to skip spreadsheets altogether and jump straight into a program and application that's designed to help you keep these types of things organized. Waveapps is another one. QuickBooks Online, there's a cost to it, but Wave has a free version that you can use. And we're going to walk through kind of how to use each of these items as we go through this process. It doesn't really matter which one you use, as long as you are consistent and it makes sense to your brain in the way that you're keeping track of the information. You can do it on a consistent basis. The trends that we want to be looking for as we start to track things are, in Melody's case, well, how many gigs is she doing them? How many? And not just how many, but when? When are the gigs happening? And where? So if maybe she is in Austin, Texas, like I am, she's going to maybe have a couple of more gigs in the cooler season and not so many in the heat of summer. That's an important trend to keep track of. So it's not only how many, it's also when are things happening. Same with the merchandise. Well, obviously, a lot more merchandise is going to be sold if you are selling it at a gig. But what if you also had an online store, a virtual store that you could sell merchandise? Well, if you're keeping track of merchandise sales, you're going to want to see when those merchandise sales, those online merchandise sales are spiking or dipping. So it's not just how much or how many, it's also when and sometimes where. Think about if you are getting grants, the city of Austin, the state of Texas, sometimes some of these other nonprofit organizations provide grants to artists and other nonprofit organizations to perpetuate getting art in our culture. Well, when are those grants available? That might dictate when that money actually flows into your business bank account. And of course, when are events happening? This year in the Austin area, we've got South by Southwest, we've got Austin City Limits, we've got a couple of other really big events that maybe you're not a part of directly, but if it's bringing focus to your area of art, you can do the coattail thing and increase your sales because there's an event in town. Again, that's kind of a where as well as a how many. So what you're looking for is how much, when, and how many dollars does it bring in, as well as how many times does it occur. And this is going to be over time. So you can't just look at 1 month, which is why we want to start out when we're tracking things just kind of 1 month at a time, because we want to take it in small chunks. But we have to be thinking about that crystal ball. It's going to be looking out into the future much further than just this month. And when we look further out in the future, we're going to rely on trends so that we can say, okay, well, there's an event this year, South by Southwest, for example. Is South by Southwest going to occur next year? If so, how can I capitalize on helping my income go and follow those events? That's how the trajectory gets built in. So in Melody's case, again, her gigs, that's going to be in the cooler months because a lot more of her fans, she sings the blues, and a lot of the time in the cooler weather, the blues are where you want to be. But then it flows itself into the spring and early summer season when all of the events are happening. Well, that's where a bulk of her cash is coming in. You can see that that's 4 months out of the year that these seasonal things are happening. Well, in August and September, that's when she's finding that a lot of the grants that she would apply to what it is she does, that's when they are available. So she wants to make sure that she schedules not only her money, but also her time around those specific deadlines. And then in the fall and the winter time, well, that's when she can take the time to get her next album out. And that's going to be a little bit more focused inward. Well, she can't, if she's going to be like focused not on going out to gigs all the time in October, November, and December, that means that in her trajectory, she needs to plan for having a little bit more cash in her savings, in her sinking fund for those times when she's going to need to actually spend more than that's coming in. Because when you produce an album, you've got the band you've got to pay, and there's no gig money coming in. You've got to pay the sound engineer, you've got to pay the mastering, and it just takes time to write those songs. So when you're thinking about the trajectory, it's more than when does the money come in, but also when do I need to take the time to fill out the grant information? When do I need to take the time to create and not just be performing all the time? Again, we're going to talk about how to really use some of the tools that we've talked about to track these things so that you can see these trends. Go ahead and grab that easy 1-page, 1-month spreadsheet so that you can at least start thinking about what things to start tracking. We don't just want to track to take up time. I mean, I would rather see you guys playing your guitar, singing your song, accomplishing your mission. No. What we're trying to do here is track our past performance. So tracking is always, if you will, looking in the rear view mirror. You're looking up here, looking in the past. But what we want to do is we want to track that so that we can see those trends and better predict the future revenue. So we're going to want to see those trends so that when we look out of the windshield rather than at that rear view mirror, we want to see where we're going. That's the trajectory piece of it. So yes, we want to track, but we don't want to spend most of our time doing the tracking. What we really want to do is spend a little bit of time tracking so that we can spend a little tad more time looking at those trends so that most of our time is spent looking out the windshield, out down the road into the future. All right, we've talked about the different ways that we can track things, especially when it comes to tracking money flowing in and out of our business. We can do it through paper, we can do it through spreadsheets, we can do it through applications like QuickBooks Online and Waveapps. So let's jump in to paper. We've already talked a little bit about making it fun, but it really does have to be that balance. So when you're thinking about tracking in any way, make sure you make it colorful, make it exciting. One of the ways to think about doing that is to set a date with your business self. Remember that when you're doing this, you want to be wearing your business hat. Again, mine is blue because my favorite color is blue. So everybody take out your business hat right now. Okay, you have it right here. Now put it on. Thank you. All right, so when you're thinking about doing this tracking, I want you to be able to have your business hat on, and you'll need to track the money coming in. When you're tracking the expenses, instead of shoving all of those receipts into that shoebox, maybe make it a little bit more organized by coordinating the colors. We talked about having maybe blue be the income, because that's my favorite color, and maybe different shades of blue that support that income. For example, in Melody's case, she wants to have dark blue as her merchandise income. Well, maybe she has a light blue folder that she puts all of the receipts in that correlate to that merchandise income. That way, she knows that her merchandise income is blue, her merchandise expenses that are related to that income is blue. So see how you can make it a little bit more exciting and still have it a little more organized. Now, when we think about how much we want to keep track of, we need to make sure that on the expense side, we keep track of, at very minimum, the survival figures. We talked about on the personal side, you've got 4 walls, you've got your food, your clothes, your shelter, like your rent or your mortgage, and some sort of transportation. Then on the business side, our 4 walls are going to be our cost of goods sold. That's the merchandise, how much we had to pay for that. It's also going to be the labor in Melody's case, because she's in a band. She has to pay the band members every time they have a gig or when she wants them to play in the recording with her. So she's got to make sure that she has that labor covered. In addition to that, there's rent. In her case, of course, because she's also going to be recording, she might have some studio time, But maybe if you are a painter or a jewelry maker and you go to festivals, you might have the rent of the booth there at the festival. So you want to make sure that that rent is covered. The last big one is going to be your advertising. If people don't know that you are around, there's no way that they can buy from you. So advertising and marketing is one of those four walls. Remember that we've got some other things that sort of overlap. For example, your phone and internet, those need to be part of the expenditures that you're going to keep track of that help make your business run. So when we are tracking all of this stuff on the business side, we want to make sure that we track at least those four areas. And if there are any other overlapping ones, the other big thing that we want to track is to make sure that you are paying yourself owner compensation that's enough to help cover those survival figures over in your personal side. So maybe your business isn't 100% covering those yet, so that you might have to have maybe another gig job, maybe you're a waitress or you have a day job. That's okay, but we want to make sure that we are always paying ourselves first, and that part of what we pay ourselves is set aside for the tax that we're going to owe. So make sure that you're tracking that over on the personal side. And as a note, you need to keep your tracking devices completely separate from your personal and your business. Just like you need a separate business type bank account, you need a separate way to track your personal financial situation from your business side of things. Maybe for business, you pick your favorite color that goes along with your color scheme for your business. And then for your personal, pick something that makes your heart warm. Pick a different color though. Make them distinct and separate. Again, if you want that spreadsheet, make sure that you grab it with this QR code or in the link in the chat. Now, when we talked about the spreadsheet, the one that's the simple version, it just has basically 1 month. So first of all, we're going to talk about, and this one that's in view now, this is 12 months. That way we can look a little bit further out into the future and keep track of things as they go along. You don't have to if that's overwhelming. You can do it one at a time. But when you start to see things all together, sometimes it clicks up here between our ears and says, oh, look, there's a trend. For example, if we didn't know that January, February, and March were just the regular gigs, and then we started to get into the events season, we could see that a little bit more effectively if we had a bigger range of time to look at. When you're tracking, you want to track over time and kind of those different types of things that create the income that you're getting. One of the reasons you want to do that is because if you are doing these events, then you cannot be doing gigs. This is called an opportunity cost. If I'm doing this, then I don't have time or the energy or I can't be in two places at once to do this other thing. So it's really important that we start to think not only about over time, January, February, March, but also the different types of things. So in Melody's case, she's going to want to track the fact that she's got some gigs, she's got merchandise, in her case, she's got a couple of grants that she's applied for, and she's got events that she knows that she did last year, and so she's expecting them coming up this next year. When we're talking about, remember that the cost of goods sold is going to be one of the top things that we think about. And what I want you to do is immediately go down to the bottom of the page where it's got that owner compensation and owner tax, because that's really where I want you to start. If you know that in order to cover the expenses that you need it to in your personal life, that you need to be able to take out of the business $2,300 every single month, then we know that we've got to have income and only expenses out of the business that allow us to be able to take that cash out of the business on an ongoing basis. So the left-hand side of this particular spreadsheet, and even the smaller version of this, is based on the Form 1040, that's your personal tax return, Schedule C. That's the form that you would file if you are in business as a sole proprietor. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means of the different types of expenditures that you can have, but it does follow the Schedule C. So this is an easy way to help keep track of things so that you can prepare your tax return really easy. So when you're thinking about if you're just going to do this on paper, or you're going to have those separate folders to keep track of your receipts, well, maybe you want to label them in these specific categories so that you can have them easily found for you. Another way that you could do your receipt capture, instead of having them in folders, you could take a picture with your device and save them to a folder called advertising. Save them to a folder called contract labor on, I don't know, Google Docs or OneDrive or something in the cloud or on a flash drive, so that you don't have to have that paper. The IRS accepts either the paper version or the electronic version now. So you don't actually have to keep that shoebox of shame or even the wonderfully colored folders if you don't want to. Now, if that resonates better with you, you are absolutely 100% going to do it that way, and I applaud you. But if you are a little bit more tech savvy and you like the idea of having it electronic, then you can color code your folders even electronically and still keep it really fun. So by keeping track of your revenue, that's the money coming in, and your expenses on this spreadsheet or even on the smaller version of this spreadsheet, now you know that filling out at the end of the year your tax return is going to be really, really simple, assuming that you keep up with this on a very consistent basis. My recommendation would be to do this on a monthly basis. Now, if you've got the big version of this spreadsheet, it also can show you how the money is flowing in and out of your business. Now, one thing I want to keep in mind is that when you pay yourself owner compensation, it is a non-taxable event. So what I mean by that is when we look back over here at our total revenue and our total expenses, when we subtract those two, that's going to be what our taxable income is. The owner compensation, and if you have a limited liability company, that would be called an owner, a member draw, or an owner draw. That is a non-taxable event. So it's not going to increase your tax implication by giving yourself this money. What you do need to think about, though, is that it will affect your business bank account balance. And one of the things that going through this process will help us see is that there are going to be some months where we don't have enough cash to cover our expenditure of paying ourselves if we spend all of the money in the month that we made it. So what we need to do is create a savings account or a hills and valley account, sometimes also called a sinking fund, for the times in the future where we know we will be able to use that money when we're not going to be as cash flush during that month. So utilizing this larger spreadsheet allows us to see when we might need to have money set aside so that we can pay ourselves that owner draw. QuickBooks is an absolutely fabulous tool to utilize to help us organize in a little bit more formalized way. If you are tech savvy and you like the idea, highly recommend it. Tala does help you get it set up in the right way so that it can follow the Schedule C. It can also help you get it set up so that it makes sense to your brain, even though it's a computer, because sometimes the way that it's set up and the way that the IRS needs things isn't the way that your business runs. That's okay, as long as you can get the information in the long run. It doesn't matter whether it's set up like the IRS wants it to be. But it does need to be set up so that you can have information in an organized way. Here is a sales receipt that shows 1 month worth of gigs and merchandise coming in January, so that it looks exactly like what was happening in January on the spreadsheet. So in this case, we have 2 separate line items, one for the gigs and one for the merchandise, so that we can see those trends across those 2 different revenue streams. Now, we want to put that money into the bank, and another way to do it is, instead of using a sales receipt, we could use the bank deposit functionality of QuickBooks. And again, we want to split out the gig and the merchandise from each other so that we can see that on the profit and loss statement and see those trends as we go over time. So you have a couple of different options where you have way more than just these 2, but these are the most simple. You have the bank deposit to record your revenue coming in. You also have a sales receipt that you could use to record the money coming in. In QuickBooks, there is another option to be able to use the bank transactions where you connect QuickBooks directly to your bank account. You might want to think about using the bank deposit as the most simple functionality if you're going to integrate into QuickBooks directly from your bank account. Now, on the expense side, kind of whether or not you are going to use that integrated functionality with your bank account, you're going to want to use an expense type transaction. Now, if you're going to use that integrated feature, you'll probably end up with one expense transaction per line item. If you want to do this all at once and only once a month, you could go in at the end of the month and create just one giant expense type transaction with all of the different types of expenditures all on the one expense transaction. Now, I know that's a little bit overwhelming. So QuickBooks is, again, it's an absolutely fantastic tool that will give you a really, really good way to see everything all at once. But it does take a little bit of a learning curve to understand how to use it most effectively. And even though it gives you this same information, exactly the same information that we had on the spreadsheet, it can run a couple of extra things for you that the spreadsheet is not going to be able to do, especially if you use some of the more advanced functionality like instead of just the chart of accounts, if you also use some of the items, then we can run the income by a whole bunch of different ways to slice it and dice it, how many we had, when exactly we had them, and so on. So it can give you the exact same information that we created on the spreadsheet. And if we use a little bit more of its functionality, we can find that we can have a little bit more information that we cannot get off of those spreadsheets. Here's a little bit about that detail behind things, where we see that our cash flow is also accounted for in QuickBooks, because it's looking at our bank. And one of the things that is really helpful about QuickBooks is that it does have a reconciliation feature that allows us to make sure that everything that's in the system is also in our bank and credit card accounts. We don't really have that checks and balance on the spreadsheet, so that's another plug for utilizing a tool like QuickBooks or Waveapps, is because of that reconciliation feature. We didn't accidentally post something twice, or maybe we forgot an expense, that sort of thing. QuickBooks will catch that for us. Once again, Waveapps is another tool we can use. It's waveapps.com, and there is a free version of it. On this, you're going to want to look at it in a little bit more simplistic way. It's kind of like the simple version of the spreadsheet versus the more expanded version. Waveapps to me is a little bit more intuitive than QuickBooks. QuickBooks is designed for maybe not the absolute startup, maybe someone with a little bit more understanding of why you would want something like a profit and loss statement rather than just, hey, where did my money go? And Waveapps is, again, a little bit more intuitive. On both of them, by the way, you can attach your receipt that you took with your device, or you got something in your, hey, you paid us $10 for this in your email. You can attach both in QuickBooks and in Waveapps directly into the program. So you don't have to have a separate thing like OneDrive or Google Drive. Again, it's super easy to use and super easy to set up. For the most part, by default, it is set up to follow the Schedule C, and you can split it out, again, from the gigs category and the merch category if you want to. If you want to keep it really super, super simple, you can just call them all sales. I like the idea of being able to see those different types of activities that Melody wants to do, especially because that helps us with those trends a little bit better. But in Waveapps, you're going to want to create a transaction that splits it into these different categories for the revenue. And then also on the expense side, you can also do exactly the same type of transaction where you can split it, either just do one a month and put your giant categories there, or you can do it one at a time. Now, if in Waveapps, as I mentioned, there is a free version. In the paid version, that's where you can attach your bank or credit card accounts, and they can automatically bring in the transactions. So the free version takes a little bit extra keying on the keyboard, as opposed to having it come in directly from your bank or credit card. But hey, it's free, right? And in a way, it might be even better for you to start out with the free version, just so you can kind of get your head wrapped around these different categories, rather than having your bank information come in and then you're trying to figure out, well, one, how to use the program, and then two, what categories to put it in. So it might be a little bit better to even start out in the lower version and have to do it step by step so that you can get your head wrapped around how it actually all works. Again, you've got your different types of transactions. This is where you would want to put things in that you're actually going to pay yourself back for. So we know that we want a transaction to reimburse us for the website, for the internet connectivity and the telephone. So we put in an expense report for ourselves there. And then we have our owner compensation. So both of those are going to be withdrawal types. Remember that that means that it's not a tax impacting transaction. Okay, we're going to keep this really, really super simple. We want to track things. Why? Because we want to see the trends so that we can use our crystal ball right here, and see the trajectory of where things are going. We want to keep it, though, really, really simple. Don't break your head over this. It really needs to be something that you can do on a very minimum a monthly basis. And if it becomes overwhelming, I won't even do it. So make it simple for yourself. Again, go grab this really simple spreadsheet. If paper makes more sense for you, download the spreadsheet anyway so that you can see what categories you need to think about having in your paperwork. Some fun ideas about how to keep yourself doing it on an ongoing basis. One is to do a predictapalooza, all right? What I mean by that is get 2 or 3 of your friends together. In Melody's case, it's her band members. They know each other really, really well. And so on the first Monday of every month, they get together and they do their little spreadsheets or their QuickBooks, and they make a party of it. So it kind of turns it into not just like a horrible thing that we have to do because Lisa said so, and we have to track things and we have to trend them and we have to do this trajectory, and my crystal ball still looks more like the snow globe. But make it party, make it fun. Bring your blue hat every single time you go, and turn it into not just a social event, but even like an accountability type thing, right? So in Melody's case, her other band members are there, and she knows that if all of the band members are keeping track of things in their own businesses every single month, they're going to be better band members overall. So get your best friend, get another band member, find a nonprofit organization that can help support you, and do it on an ongoing basis, and seriously make it a party. Another idea is to create like this scrapbook. In Melody's case, she's got all the places that she's ever had gigs. She has one ticket stub from them, and a little blurb about why that was really fun for her. And using things like different colors to show, hey, the events bring us a lot more money than the regular gigs do. The regular gigs, they just kind of support the lull times, but those events, that's where I really shine. And in fact, that's where I get to connect a little bit better with my fans, because at the end of the night on a gig, everybody just goes home. Well, when it's an event, I get to have my spotlight of 45 minutes, but then I get to go out into the crowd and mingle. And that's where I really get to connect with my crowd and my fans. And that really brings me joy. Now, not everybody has that, but make sure that you put a star, a gold star on the times that really brought you joy, and well, heck, maybe paste a dollar bill on the ones that brought you the highest revenue. Turn it into a creative project that you can look back at and actually see those trends in picture form, not just in dollars, not just on a spreadsheet, not in some app out in the cloud, but actually pictures from those events that you were at that made it really exciting for you to be there. Okay, you guys, we've talked about a lot of different things today. Simple spreadsheets, tracking, trending, trajectories. We've talked about QuickBooks. If you guys want a little bit more one-on-one help, please make sure to sign up for Tala. Go to talaarts.org and sign up for a membership. You can get one-on-one help with your accounting, with your taxes, with running your business, because it's not just about the figures. It's really about how it makes you feel, and it's about your future. We want you to be successful as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a creative, as an artist. And Tala is really going to be there for you. Thanks again for being a part of this with me, and go out there and start tracking.